but seemingly he's performing there. You see, he's kind of like Clint Eastwood. He plays a cowboy. When his daughter sees something off in the distance. Now this happens in LA. If we move across the country, at the exact same time in the Commonwealth, the citizens near Vault 111 are warned with nuclear sirens and forced towards a bunker, specifically Vault 111.
Oh my God!
Hold on!
Oh God! Oh God! Oh God!
Now, as I mentioned, the public sentiment in the world is that the war escalated to the point where someone dropped a nuke, and then a cascade of nukes started dropping, destroying their entire world. But that is not what the TV show tells us. In fact, the TV show gives us essentially 3 options to who could have dropped the bombs. The first comes from a statement from someone by the name of Moldover, who we'll get to eventually, but she says this.
Are you familiar with Robert House? When the bombs drop, it'll be Robert House that presses the button.
Basically telling us that she believes that Robert House will be the one responsible for dropping the bombs. But at the same time, we also hear from Barbara, Coop's wife, who says herself that Vault-Tec will be the one to ensure that they drop the bombs.
How can you guarantee results?
By dropping the bomb ourselves.
However, in season 2, Barbara starts to get cold feet when it comes to dropping the bombs. Maybe it's because of her daughter, maybe it's because of her husband, but as she goes to do something about it, she gets in the elevator where an Enclave scientist, we know this because of what happens later in the TV show, stands beside her and threatens her.
You're just a very replaceable part. But if you forget your place, you'll die, so will your family.
Then, slight spoiler if you haven't seen the most recent episode of season 2, but in the penultimate episode of season 2, we also see Coop give the cold fusion vial to the President of the United States, also leading us to believe that it might be going to the Enclave, giving them this ultimate boost of power right before the bombs drop. Now, once the nukes are dropped, the nukes themselves destroyed a massive amount of the world's population, but so did the aftermath. A nuclear winter ensued, as well as the world being covered in a high amount of radiation, killing many, not all, of the world's population. Now, people on the surface of the Earth tried to stay alive, having to deal with mutations, animals mutating, and a whole new world order. But where our story picks up is on Reclamation Day in 2102. 25 years after the bombs are dropped in Vault 76 in the Appalachians of West Virginia. Now, this vault is filled with America's highest intellects. The smartest people across America got put into this vault. Now, this was one of the 17 control vaults placed around America. In other words, this vault had no crazy social experiments. They were just planning on it being the first vault to open after the bombs dropped 25 years later. So they could go out and the smartest people could repopulate the Appalachians. Just as a small aside though, from what we know so far in the Fallout universe, this was the earliest vault ever opened. Now, when the vault opens up, you are given a mission by the Overseer to get control of a bunch of nukes. However, at the time, the area is taken over by a group known as the Scorched. So our goal becomes to stop all of them. And repeating the mistakes of the past, we do exactly that. We nuke them. And eventually you stop someone by the name of the Scorched Queen, cutting the connection between the leader and the rest of the Scorched, saving the Appalachians. Now, at this time, the Appalachians are pretty empty. The Scorched have pushed people out until the DLC comes along for Fallout 76. And when they do, the Wastelanders DLC brings 2 main groups, the Settlers and the Raiders, and you could choose which one you side with, but eventually you pick one, get inside of a vault known as Vault 79, which is the Gold Vault, literally housing all of the gold for the United States Gold Reserve. So basically, you end up getting pretty rich, either alongside the Raiders or alongside the Settlers. Now, eventually, the Brotherhood of Steel shows up in the Appalachians. Now, we haven't talked about them yet because they are a faction that was actually founded after the bombs dropped. Their goal is two main things. Number one, maintaining order as they smoke within the waste, but also getting their hands on a massive amount of pre-war weaponry and tech. And in fact, there are two games that are directly about the Brotherhood of Steel. Number one being Fallout Tactics, and number two being Fallout Brotherhood. But Bethesda has specifically said that both of these games are not canon. So we will come back to the Brotherhood, but for now, this is what we know about it. The last thing that you should know about Fallout 76 and around this time is you can also go on some expeditions where you go outside of the Appalachians to the tip of the Pittsburgh or Atlantic City. Now, Fallout 76 is ever evolving, so we could get more DLC for this one. However, as of right now, this is everything that we know about it in the year 2102. So let's jump forward quite a bit to the year 2161, where Fallout 1 takes place.
You want to put an autograph, young Henry? Fail. Fuerte.
Now, Fallout 1 might actually be a little
Damn, y'all ain't got me working up an appetite.
Number one, this is our first look at the wastes in California, aka where the TV show first takes place. And we go back here several times throughout the various games, as you're going to see. In this one, you play as a vault dweller from Vault 13, which once again is another one of those control vaults. In other words, no crazy social experiments. However, in the year 2161, one of the vault's chips that control the water in the vault actually breaks, so you need a new one. So the Overseer sends you out as the vault dweller, go find one of these chips and save the vault. Now, when you see one of the places that you actually go to, you know a place called which, if you've seen the TV shows, becomes immensely important to the overall story. However, in the year 2061, this is one of the first thriving communities after the bombs were dropped. So you go there, and it also takes you to a bunch of other adults looking for items, run into a 20 tools, and eventually you find one of those water chips. But the wastes have another problem, something known as super mutants. You are tasked with irradiating the world of all of those super mutants. Now, eventually you run the plot, I guess you could call it a conspiracy theory, but it's called the Children of the This is the group that turns out is actually turning people into super mutants with something known as the Forced Evolutionary Virus, aka the FEV. So in Fallout 1, you put a stop to the super mutants, you put a stop to the FEV, and then you are still not allowed back in the vault. At the end of the game, he quite literally sends you back out into the wastes, and you are not allowed in the vault. And this is all we know until the year 2241, aka 80 years later. A lot of people don't know this, but Fallout 2, in a very strange way, actually ends up setting up the story for Fallout. Now, in Fallout 2, you play as a descendant of the same vault dweller from Fallout 1 from Fallout 13. He settles in a town called Alonia. I hope I'm saying that right. Which he and his family are now in. He's had a wife, had kids, and you play as the chosen one of his descendants. But the village that you're in, Arroyo, is ran by someone by the name of the Elder. And I guess once again, you have to deal with a very similar problem, which is the town has a drought and is running out of water. So the Elder tells you that we need to fix this and tries to tell you to find something known as the Garden of Eden Creation Kit, or a GEC for short, something that's going to become more popular again within Fallout 3. Now, as far as locations that you end up going within Fallout 2, you once again make your way back to Shady Sands, which has now become home to the NCR, or the New California Republic. Again, another group that we're going to become very, very familiar with. Also, you work your way back to Vault 13, your old home, and guess what? It is completely overrun by death claws. Eventually, after exploring the waste and trying to find a GEC, you work your way back to your home of Arroyo. And when you get there, it's completely taken over by a group known as the Enclave. Now, the Enclave are this kind of secret group which were made up of high-ranking government officials. At least that's what it was before the bombs dropped. Now, at this point, after the bombs have gone off, it still appears to be the US government. Now, they rule the world with an iron fist, as well as a lot of tech. They have the highest-end scientists, highest-end techs. So now you have to take them down, which the Chosen One tells you to do. And you have to go to their main base, which is an offshore oil rig. And upon getting there, you find out that the citizens of Arroyo, as well as Vault 13, are being held prisoners upon this oil rig. So eventually, you free all the prisoners and kill the leader of the Enclave, which, as it turns out, is the US president. Now, as a brief side note, if you have been watching the Fallout TV shows, one of the things that we have in season 1 or season 2 is much of the Enclave, aside for a couple of Enclave scientists here and there. However, in the second last episode of season 2, we finally get to see the president. And based off of other Fallout games, it leads us to believe that this is the leader of the Enclave. Just saying. But that brings us to an end of Fallout 2. So jump forward 17
got me working
years
up an
to the year
appetite.
2258 in Fallout 3. Now, Fallout 3 presents something really, really cool. I will show you in a minute, but first I have to set this up a couple years before. It begins in the year 2258 in Washington, D.C., in Vault 101. Now, this vault experiment was that it was supposed to always remain sealed. It was to see what the long-term effects of isolation actually were for a community. Now, in this game, we play as a character who we actually see is born within Vault 101. In the next years of his life, you get to see him growing up, being locked in a playpen as a baby, seeing him go to school as a teen, and this brings us to the year 2277. This is where things get cool. Because in the year 2277, your character turns 19 years old. And one day, you wake up and find out that your father has left the vault. This is something that people of Vault 101 have never seen before. At least so the people around the vault are absolutely surprised. You escape from the vault, down to your father. When you do, this is what you see. Now, in the exact same year, 2277, across America, kind of between California and Vegas, you have that city of Shady Sands. The one that is kind of the first war driving village eventually taken over by the NCR. Guess what? We're still driving in 2277. But, we'll come back to this, but I thought it was interesting that it was the same year Vault 101 in Fallout 3. You got out of the vault and you were searching for your father, but you find much more. So, steel, rat scorpions, crowd first settlement you run into known as Megaton, which has an unexploded nuke sitting in the center of the city, which you can eventually choose to defuse or explode, depending on how evil you are. Now, eventually, within Megaton, you end up talking to a character by the name of Moriarty, and no, not the one from Sherlock Holmes. However, he has pieced together a bunch of information about your parents. And what it turns out is that your parents weren't actually born in Vault 101. They were brought in there and stayed for a while after you were born. We also find out that your father worked on something known as Project Purity, a project designed to create pure water free from radiation. We also find out that there are studies over this project. Enclave, aka the US government, who within Fallout 3 no longer has a US president because you killed him in Fallout 2. They now have an AI computer that is their president, or at least the leader of the Enclave. And they're also fighting against the Brotherhood of Steel. Now, in Fallout 3, you are heavily pushed towards the path of joining the Brotherhood of Steel. Reason being, your father actually worked with them on Project Purity. Now, eventually, you end up working your way to a vault known as Vault 112. So everyone inside, social experiment of this one, that everyone was suspended within suspended animation, including your father for some reason. But you end up rescuing your father from the vault, and once you do so, you help your father complete Project Purity. But at the same time working on it, the Enclave show up. This ends up happening.
Comply immediately, sir, in order to prevent any more incidents. Are we clear?
Yes, Colonel. Do whatever you want. There's no need for more violence. It'll only be a few more moments. Run. Run!
James. He's gone.
So your father sacrifices himself in order to keep
Damn, you
Project
got me
Purity
working
out
up
of the
appetite.
Enclave's hand. Like I said, they really push you to not work with the Enclave. Now, to finish Project Purity, you once again need to get your hands on a jet, similar to the Now, you do get your hands on a jet, and when you do, the Enclave end up taking you captive, and you need to break out the facility. And in doing so, you find out that what the Enclave are trying to do, they are trying to actually contaminate the water with Project Purity in order to eradicate all. You go ahead and end up running with the Brotherhood of Steel, and Autobots assemble. I mean, you get a giant robot known as Liberty Prime. Then you can either kill or convince Colonel Augustus to leave, but either way, you end up saving Project Purity. However, there's a problem. Whoever turns on Project Purity, creating a bunch of clean water for the people of Washington, whoever does so will die. Or so we think. Because you see, originally when you completed Fallout 3, the game would be over. You couldn't continue on after the game ended. Until DLC came out, known as Broken Steel, and in this DLC, you end up waking up 2 years later and once again working with the Brotherhood of Steel. Now, there's actually more than one DLC, and we're going to go through these rapid fire mode. First up in Operation Anchorage, using VR and witness the war of what happened before the bombs dropped between the United States and China. In the pit, you go to Pittsburgh and fight in a gladiatorial arena. In Broken Steel, as I mentioned, the story continues the main game, where you continue to hunt down the remaining Enclave. In Point Lookout, you go to Point Lookout State Park in Maryland, where the lone wanderer travels to a murky, uncharted swampland and becomes embroiled in a century-old feud between a ghoul named Desmond and a brain in a vat known as Professor Talbot. And finally, we have Mothership Zeta, where you go aboard a UFO. So that is all completed in the year 2277, and then we jump 4 years ahead to Fallout New Vegas. So the year is 2281, and we are on the other side of America, this time in Nevada, where the story picks up once again, but this time not as a false runner. This time you're a Curry, who is quickly shot in the face by he robs him of something called the Platinum Chip. Lucky for us, though, a software by the name of Scott Mitchell patches you up real quickly, and eventually he sends you on your way when you go to retrieve the Platinum Chip. But here's what you have to understand about New Washington. New Vegas is a facility that has running water and electricity, all from the Hoover Dam. Now, the man who runs this is known as House, aka Robert House, the same person from the pre-war era who ran Robco. Now, he planned for what was going to happen with the bombs,
Damn, you
and he
got me
created
working
a
up an
defense
appetite.
system that destroyed most of the nukes that were headed for Vegas. That's why this area is a little less destroyed than some of the other areas across America. Now, as the story goes on, we end up finding out that he's actually still alive in a stasis chamber and is running things through this computer that he has created. Now, aside from different factions across the area as well. One of the biggest is the NCR, or the New California Republic, as we talked about before. The second of which is Caesar's Legion. Now, this is an old school group that rule everything that they have in a very, very vicious way. Now, for decades, the two of these factions have been fighting over the Hoover Dam, because basically who controls the Hoover Dam is going to be who controls New Vegas. Now, remember that platinum chip that we talked about before? This is the upgrade for New Vegas. Whoever has this gets to upgrade New Vegas and basically gets control over it. And you can choose side with the NCR, Mr. House, or the person who stole from you. Then, claiming New Vegas Vegas as its own independent settlement. However, based off of what we see in the TV show years later, because season 2 actually takes place in New Vegas, it appears as though one of the two endings in New Vegas are canon. Either Mr. House is alive and you side with him, or 2, you sided with Benny, reclaiming it as an independent settlement. We don't know which is canon yet, but as we decide more, again, if you want to see more Fallout content, hit the like button. Now again, Fallout New Vegas has 4 different DLCs, so let's rapid fire through them again. In Dead Money, the courier goes and performs a casino heist for the Brotherhood of Steel. In Honest Heart, you go to Utah and fight in a tribal war. In Old World Blues, you get kidnapped by a think tank, a group of pre-war scientists that have replaced their bodies with machines. And finally, in Lonesome Road, you go to the Divide, the area between Nevada and California, where you kill a man who you eventually find out is the real reason why the Platinum chip never made its way to Mr. House. And that brings us to the end of Fallout New Vegas, moving once again across the country in the year 2287. 4 takes place 10 years after Fallout 3. We pick up in the Commonwealth, aka Boston. Now, this is the same guy we saw 210 years ago, who was lowered into Vault 111, him put in a cryo chamber, his wife away from him. All the while, he was able to do nothing. Now, at some point later, he wakes up in Vault 111. Everyone in the vault is dead. He is the sole survivor of Vault 111. So unlike Fallout 3, where you were searching across the waste for your father, this time, you are searching across the wastes for your son. So we go into Boston looking for our son and eventually make our way to Fenway Park, I mean Diamond City. Now, it's at this time where we hear about a secret organization known as the Institute, who may or may not be kidnapping people and replacing them with fake people, aka robots, known as synths. Now, we track down our son's kidnapper by the name of Kellogg, who informs us that the Institute have taken him. So now we need to get into the Institute.
Damn, you ain't got me working up an appetite.
Or the Railroad. Now, after you choose your way into the Institute, you find your leader. The leader, this so happens to be your son, who is now 16 years old. Which means he was taken out of that chamber 16 years ago in the year 2200. Now, we find out that the Institute wanted your son's DNA from a pre-war person to help create their system.
Well, I guess base plan ain't what it used to be.
Number 1, you
drive that thing like a fucking shopping cart.
As Sean, or your son, is now dying, he asks you to replace him. You can do that, or you can blow up the Institute with its nuclear reactor via one of the other factions, aka Brotherhood of Steel, Minutemen, or the Railroad. And this brings us to rapid fire DLC time. The first DLC for Fallout 4 is the Automaton DLC, where you can fight someone known as the Mechanist, who fights you with a bunch of robots. Or you can go to Far Harbor, which is a scary island where you're looking for a missing person.
Damn, you ain't got me working up an
you become
appetite.
the overseer of Vault 88, creating your own vault. And finally, we have the Nuka World
gotta be
DLC,
fucking
where you
kidding
get to go
me.
to a Nuka-Cola amusement park and eventually take it over. Now, this brings us to an end of the games. We now go to the thing that ties it all together, the year 2296. So in the year 2296, we start out in Vault 33, which is actually in combination with 2 other vaults, Vault 32 and Vault 31. Now, the kind of experiments through these 3 vaults were designed to create a large group of middle managers. Vault 31, for that matter, is a bunch of middle managers who used to work at Vault Tech, who are once again cryogenically frozen, awaiting being woken up. So in Vault 33, we meet someone by the name of Lucy, whose father, Hank, is the overseer of Vault 32. 33. Now, life is going well until a group of raiders, whose leader's name is Moldova, breaks into the vault and seemingly takes Lucy's father. Lucy then follows them, leaving Vault 33 to go track down and save her father. Now, on the surface, we meet someone by the name of Cooper Howard, who we saw pre-war and talked about before. However, now that 200 years have passed, he has become a ghoul, which, by the way, even at this point in the season of the show, we haven't yet seen how that all came about. But he is a bounty hunter looking for someone specific. And at the same time, we have another person by the name of Maximus, who's a part of the Brotherhood of Steel, and is looking for that exact same bounty. Eventually, the three of them end up tracking down this bounty. It turns out to be an enclave scientist. But by the way, the same scientist who confronted Barbara, Cooper's wife, in war in the holiday. That's not the only thing that's odd, because eventually Lucy and Maximus come across Shady Sands, which now we see is just a crater in the ground. We find out that in the year 2277, as we talked about before, the city was nuked, and one of the only people to survive from it was Maximus. He was placed into a fridge by his parents, which we later learned about within season 2. But by the very end of season 1, we end up tracking down Moldova, who has
That right there.
find out the truth of what really happened in the
So far.
the vault of Lucy was covered. It turns out Hank, Lucy's father, was one of those middle management vault secretaries that was held with a child system in Vault 31. Eventually, he was broken up and he had a baby with Lucy's mother. However, Lucy's mother found out what was going on
Rule number 1. Read the
When
manual.
Hank found out about this, he left and tried to track them down, bring them back to the vault. Lucy's mother refused. So Hank's plan is if he didn't have his wife and kids, nobody could. If he knew the place that they were staying, Shady Sands, in hopes that they were then returned to the vault. However, the children do. Now, while this is all going down, they find out about Moldova's plan in order to track down the enclave scientist who had access to a technology known as cold fusion, which basically gives unlimited power. By the end of the season, the Brotherhood of Steel end up with the enclave technology of cold fusion, and Hank manages to escape, running to New Vegas. Now, this brings us to season 2, which I will say for the most part takes place pre-war. However, what we have learned so far within season 2 is the reason why Cooper is working with Lucy is she believes that her father, Hank, actually has access to his wife and kids in some sort of mysterious vault. And as the season has progressed, we found out that Hank does indeed have access to his wife and kids. And he is running some experiments with some old Rockville technology that back in the day, Mr. House actually found, which is able to get in people's necks and able to destroy them. Lucy then works to hunt down and bring your father to justice, while at the same time, Maximus, inside the Brotherhood of Steel, has stolen the cold fusion technology. And in the ultimate episode of season 2, we see Maximus joining up with Coop to go track down Lucy, who we find out is inside of this vault tech vault. Is no lucky 48. However, when Coop gets there, uses it to power back on Mr. House. He lives. But we also found out in the pre-war that the cold fusion was given to the Enclave, so Selena believes that they will also get more involved with the ending. And whatever the ending may be, I'm willing to bet the Enclave are going to get more involved. And if you'd like to see me maybe do an ending explained video for season 2 of Fallout TV, so think about hitting that like button, maybe subscribing to the channel. If you like video game story, this is definitely a place for you. But until then, this has been the full Fallout timeline so far. If you want to see more Fallout videos, the best way to show me is simply hitting that like button. But until next time, peace.
Seems like yes. Right there. Closest thing technically must have changed so far. You gotta be fucking kidding me. Damn, y'all ain't got me working up an appetite. Damn, y'all ain't got me working up an appetite. I do this shit with the love for the game.
Max armor!
Well. Well, I guess basic plan ain't what it used to be. Damn, y'all ain't got me working up an appetite. You ain't going nowhere. Well, I guess basic plan ain't what it used to be. guess race train ain't what it used to be. You drive that thing like a fucking shopping cart. You gotta be fucking kidding me. I do this shit for the love of the game. Love the shit long as we all got. Y'all worry about this part.
Never thought I would miss Afghanistan this much. At least it was sunny. Bonus points!
Do this shit for the love of the game.
Double points! Insta-kill!
Come on, Rocky. Faster if you don't make it, Sil. Well, well, well. Well, now that is a very small drop in a very, very large bucket. You ain't know what's going on.
Bonus points!
gotta be fucking kidding me.
Bonus points!
There's a guild checkpoint nearby. Clear it out and loosen the guild's foothold.
There's a command center nearby leaking toxin. Find the source and shut it down.
I've marked some guild charging stations nearby. Cut the power and piss them off.
There's a guild command center nearby. Clear it out and kill the commander.
There's a guild shipping container nearby. Get to it before they do. Take down the dog. Container secure. Well done. We'll put it to good use.
Objective identified.
There's a command center nearby that can toxin everywhere. Shut it down.
You're approaching a guild command center. Clear it out and kill the commander.
Give me a minute. Not fucking dead here! Give me a hand!
for standing in the way of progress.
Get to the point. I don't have all day.